When the Lockheed P-38 Lightning appeared over the Pacific in 1942, Japanese pilots first saw its twin boom shape as odd and amusing, likening it to an alien craft. But the humor faded as the Lightning proved a game-changer in air combat. Nicknamed the fork-tailed devil in Europe, it was initially dismissed as a slow, heavy target for the agile A6M0, a misjudgment that soon proved costly. Japan at peak confidence. By late 1942, Japan's air forces were riding high. The A6M0 had carved a fearsome reputation, dominating early campaigns across the Pacific. Agile, long-ranged, and deadly in the hands of experienced pilots, it had humbled Allied air power from the Philippines to the Coral Sea. Japanese doctrine centered on close-range dogfighting, exploiting the Zero's superb maneuverability to overwhelm slower, less agile opponents. The Americans, however, had been developing something different, an aircraft designed not for tight turns, but for speed, altitude, and hitting power. In Europe, the P-38 was already proving itself as a long-range escort and high-speed interceptor. In the Pacific, its massive range was exactly what the U.S. needed, a fighter that could fly hundreds of miles over open ocean, escort bombers deep into enemy territory, and still have the speed to fight or flee on its own terms. What made the P-38 different? From the moment it rolled onto airstrips in the South Pacific, the Lightning stood out. Its twin Allison VIII 1710 turbo-supercharged engines pushed it past 400 miles per hour, a startling figure to Japanese analysts accustomed to facing American fighters at least 50 to 80 miles per hour slower than their own. Its combat radius of over 1,000 miles meant it could strike far beyond the range of Japanese interceptors. The P-38's weaponry was concentrated in its nose, 120mm Hispano cannon, and 4.50 caliber Browning machine guns. This setup meant every round traveled the same trajectory, allowing accurate fire well beyond the convergence range of wing-mounted guns. Japanese pilots would later remark, often with dread, about the Lightning's ability to tear aircraft apart from distances they considered safe. Despite weighing over 17,000 pounds fully loaded, more than triple the Zero's weight, the P-38 handled remarkably well thanks to its tricycle landing gear and counter-rotating propellers, which eliminated torque effects. Unlike the lightly built Zero, the Lightning could absorb heavy damage and still limp home, a fact that frustrated Japanese aces who were used to seeing opponents burst into flames after just a few hits. What looked like an ungainly giant was, in reality, a high-speed predator, optimized for the vast distances and high-altitude duels of Pacific warfare, a type of combat Japan's pilots were far less prepared to fight, from concept to combat. The P-38's path to combat was anything but smooth. When Lockheed proposed its radical twin-boom design in 1937, many in the U.S. Army Air Corps were skeptical. In an era still transitioning from biplanes, the Lightning's futuristic appearance and engineering complexity seemed risky. Test flights exposed serious problems: engine overheating in climbs, cockpit frosting at altitude, and dangerous instability in high-speed dives. The P-38 was the first American fighter to encounter compressibility, a poorly understood aerodynamic phenomenon that caused control surfaces to stiffen in dives past 500 miles per hour, trapping pilots in near vertical plunges. Several test pilots were killed before engineers solved the problem by adding dive recovery flaps. Weight was another issue. Each upgrade, more armor, self-sealing fuel tanks, heavier armament, pushed the aircraft further from the nimble turn-and-burn model the Air Corps PAS was used to. Some officials wanted to scrap it altogether in favor of simpler fighters like the P-40 or P-39. Lockheed persisted, refining the turbo superchargers, improving cooling systems, and tuning the airframe for stability at high altitude. By late 1942, the Pacific War's demands for range and firepower meant the P-38's time had finally come. A rude awakening for Japan. At first, Japanese pilots assumed the P-38 would fall easily to the Zero's tighter turns. Instead, Americans used boom and zoom tactics, diving from above, firing a brief, deadly burst, then climbing away before the Zero could respond. This played to the Lightning's speed, climb rate, and firepower, while avoiding drawn-out dogfights. Its long range also let it escort bombers deep into enemy territory, striking far beyond Zero reach. Bases like Rabaul and Bougainville reported P-38s appearing without warning, lingering overhead, and attacking from unexpected angles. The aircraft's most famous feat came in April of 1943 when Operation Vengeance eliminated Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, proof the Lightning could deliver lethal force anywhere in the Pacific. The changing Japanese assessment. Early 1943 Japanese intelligence dismissed the P-38 as an overbuilt, sluggish escort. But by year's end, reports warned of a dangerous high-speed attacker to be met with extreme caution. Pilots learned its strength wasn't in turning. It avoided dogfights entirely, diving with lethal speed and vanishing before counterfire. One aviator likened it to a hawk, gone before your guns can speak. Its long range and unpredictability meant P-38s could strike from nowhere and reappear minutes later, keeping opponents on edge. By 1944, it was a top priority threat. Not invincible, but always respected. Tactics that turned the tables. If the P-38's design impressed Japanese analysts, its tactics unnerved them even more. From the start, U.S. squadron leaders drilled Lightning pilots to fight smart, never turn with a Zero, keep the speed advantage, and control the engagement from above. The turbo-supercharged engines allowed the P-38 to perform well at altitudes where the Zero struggled. American pilots often dictated the terms of battle, striking from high altitude and retreating before the enemy could respond. Two ship teams worked in coordinated attacks, with one Lightning drawing a Zero into a climb, while another dove in unseen for the kill. The nose-mounted guns allowed deadly slashing attacks from farther out, forcing Japanese pilots to break off before they could close the gap. To many Japanese aviators, these tactics felt dishonorable, avoiding the fair fight of a turning duel, but they were ruthlessly effective. Psychological warfare in the sky. The Lightning didn't just change how the Japanese fought, it changed how they felt about fighting. Early in the war, Zero pilots approached combat with confidence, even arrogance. But the P-38's speed, range, and ruggedness introduced a new kind of anxiety. The long range meant it could appear deep behind enemy lines where Japanese pilots felt safe. Once a P-38 was on your tail, escape chances were slim. Pilots spoke of a double fear: fear of being caught and fear of missing a fleeting chance to strike before it disappeared. Worse, the Lightning could take punishment the Zero could never survive. Many Japanese veterans recalled pumping rounds into a P-38, only to watch it dive away trailing smoke, yet somehow keep flying. This resilience undermined the Zero pilot's confidence in his own killing power. Over time, even seasoned Japanese aces began fighting more conservatively, avoiding maneuvers that might leave them vulnerable. By 1944, the Lightning was as much a psychological weapon as a physical one. Legacy: more than just kill counts. The P-38's legacy went beyond its many aerial victories. In the Pacific, it proved that speed, firepower, and range could outweigh pure maneuverability, forcing Japan to rethink its air combat doctrine. For the US, it showed that a fighter didn't need to dominate every performance category, just the ones that matched the mission. Its long-range escort and deep strike capability accelerated Japan's pilot losses, leaving by 1944 a force with only a fraction of pre-war training. Technologically, it shaped post-war fighter design, influencing aircraft from the F-86 Sabre to modern multi-role jets. Most importantly, it turned perception into a weapon. What began as a strange shape in the sky became a symbol of shifting power, proving that innovation can trump tradition. And that's the story of the P-38 Lightning. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of World War II's most legendary fighters, smash that like and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next mission.